Hello, I just got done writing my blog about my recollection of everything that happened during the Church of the IV Majesties, and that's been spread around already, so this is the corresponding video. As far as the things contained in it goes, I'll just recap it for y'all. Those of you who can't read almost 5,000 words. To start at the beginning, I remember when we met James, as I've been told to refer to this as. We've tried several times to get a YouTube channel going for the Church of the IV Majesties, and every single time, doesn't matter what fucking camera it was, it failed. He wasn't satisfied, so he just discarded it. We had a temple consecration that we recorded in late April of 2010. That was done 3 times because he wasn't happy about it, and we were going to record that and send it to the news, all the news stations up here, but something happened with the footage and it never made it. Then a few weeks later, as I discussed, we had some fucking little pranks pulled on us, since we were new in the neighborhood also, and we did some research, and James put in their little heads that it would be fun to do a ritual in the backyard to scare them. So therefore, like I said, the Chupacabra ritual was born. It was meant to scare the neighbors, and who watched peekingly through the fence, and it was kind of fun. We used the little possessed rat that we have, and made it appear out of nowhere, and we were all in costumes and everything, and tiki torches, and it was all set up in the middle of the night, and it was very fun, but it was very creepy. So the next morning, the neighbors decided to have a priest bless their house inside and out with little incense and chants and everything, and that, needless to say, they're still our good friends. But the other rituals that we tried a few other ones, and what happened with the Chupacabra ritual, why it never made it, was James wasn't satisfied because he could hear the little dog that we have in the background. Yeah. We tried to record a few of the weekly exorcism rehearsals, and either too much fog or the cameraman or whatever kept that from being out, even just like 10-second clips. We used, didn't matter, he had a few things that he tried. We even had a camera set up to the computer over here, and we taped the camera on the wall, and just to get a better angle. Well, and somehow, I don't even remember. There was like 10 people in the room. It was a self-dedication for 3 of the church members, and somehow that never made it. So that's, I think, part of why Adam and I like to be on camera so much, is because we want things to get out there, and we want everything, and that's part of why I wrote this blog. Now, the really twisted stuff started happening in the middle of the summer, because James decided to try and get me involved in a specific fetish group. I wasn't sure of how any of that worked. He got me to while he was standing over me, he got me to get a profile on the computer. And he said he had a friend who he described very much in detail, so I believe him, and how she ran a group, and he found out that she was going to be running something in Tulsa, and he wanted to go see her, and he wanted to introduce me to her, and that was supposed to be later on, and later on in the summer, early fall, and he kept forcing the dominant submissive couple behavior, and over those few weeks did things like snap his fingers at me to go get something. I didn't think anything of it, so I went and got something, and it pissed him off, and he told James to never do that again in front of him. And as much as that was a good thing, that's when James really started working on me when Adam was at work, manhandling, physically moving me around and forcing me into different positions while threatening me, telling me I need to behave a certain way or else I would be found out at this thing and get caught, and then I would be in trouble, and then I would have my kids taken away. And that scared the living shit out of me, because I didn't want anything to go away. I didn't want the kids to go away. I couldn't imagine a life without them. So the more he physically trained me, as he kept referring to it as training for this event, to become more submissive around him, I had to play mommy and pretend that everything was fine when the kids wanted dinner after the training sessions happened. And he would talk constantly to me. I would be doing church work on the computer, I would be doing whatever, and he would be constantly in my ear for 2 or 3 hours at a time, just nonstop, and I would tune him out. I didn't realize at the time that's when I was tuning him out. I thought that was a good thing, because I wasn't interested in what he had to blabber on about. But he kept changing topics every so often, and several topics later, and that's how he ended up getting in my head. That's how he programmed me. And all the while I was taking care of the kids, making dinner, taking the trash out, he would still be blah, 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 blah. And then as soon as Adam came home from working late, James would smoke a cigarette and talk for up to half an hour, and then go take off for the night. And I had to pretend like everything was fine. And so then the night of the event, he told James, Adam was at work, the kids were being watched, and he gave me a skirt, and he said it was from one of his ex-wives, and he said he liked how it looked. Then he said that either we have sex here now or publicly at this event. And he said a lot of vulgar things, which I put in my blog. It actually came out of my head. And onto that, very detailed things that I had been haunted with. He said that, and so I was scared of going to prison, and so I gave into it. And that minute later, it fucked everything up. It did, and there's still a lot of guilt which I have to work through. And so after that Tulsa event, which was completely not what he said it would be, we picked up the girls. My parents said that they would watch one of the kids, so we took 2 of the kids back to our house here, and he got me interested in having a instant messaging discussion with one of the church members who ended up being the altar for the exorcism. And he excused himself to go get something to drink, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then like 2 minutes later the dog was barking, and I came out in the living room and the front door was wide open, and the kids were both gone. Our autistic child and our youngest one were nowhere to be found. They were found shortly close by, but someone had already called the cops, and the cops ringed me, like 4 of them. And James, they talked to James separately, and we brought the kids back here. And then like a few minutes later, when I was shaking and crying, like, because I knew Adam would completely lose it, I had to tell him. I was so scared I had to tell him what happened. And someone knocked at the door, and I ran to the door, and there was another cop, it was just another cop, a different one this time, and okay, apparently there's a technical difficulty, and so this is going to be a part 2 of this. And from where I was talking about after that night at Tulsa that when the kids got out, the cops, everything we're all fine and safe. And this third cop came to the door, and he, like I said, he didn't have a notebook, so he wrote things on his hand. And I guess when they were talking with James away from me, questioning about what was going on with the kids outside, he said that he was their father because the cop at the door pointed at James, who was staying in the living room, and asked if this is the dad. And I got mad. I remember getting mad and saying, no. I said, my husband works out more until a little bit from now. He's going to be finishing his shift soon. Then this is just a friend of the family. And the cop, his face was all scrunched up, and he was like, and so he wrote on his hand, something on his hand, and said, okay, well, I'll make note of that. And then that was pretty much it. And he's like, well, I'll let you go and make sure to get another lock on the door. And so James was standing there, and he was really pissed. He had his arms crossed and his chest puffed. And because James was a little bit taller than my husband and about 2 sizes smaller, so physically he looked like Adam. And by description, he could have gotten away with, we had never had any interactions with the cops before, so that's why they believed him when he said that he was the father of the kids. And there's still some times where it's hard to deal with thinking about that. So when I was still freaking out and shaking and crying and running around the house like a chicken with my head cut off until Adam came home, because I knew that he was going to completely come unglued and be so mad at me, and because the kids got out and everyone's safety was at risk. James said everything would be okay, and we talked things out and decided to move forward with things with the church. By that point, the exorcism at the Civic Center had already been written. That had already been, space had already been set aside, and so we sent out, in the following weeks, we had sent out letters, invitations to some local churches, and for a few weeks no one said anything. Then while this was going on, after that event in Tulsa and the time that the news broke, for about that month, there was supposed to be a destruction ritual that one of our church members was going to do, and it was to be held here. And they said that James said that, told me that Adam was supposed to use a live altar, and I was just supposed to let it happen. And I said I couldn't let that happen, and he said, you're going to be with me, and there's no 2 ways around that. And I was like, no, and James still he started his talking thing again, and it cut through everything, through his conversations, and I came up with an excuse to cancel that, and that never happened. so that next night that he was over here, after that ritual was canceled, he separated ourselves from the kids, and he locked the back door and here, and he turned the lights off and low, and he looked at me, got right up in my face, like 2 inches from my face, and said, his eyes were glossy and like he wasn't there. And he said, "No one ever does anything like that to me. Why did you do that? You're not going to do that again. If you do, I'll call DHS." And it was right there on the stairs. He had me pinned down, and he was leaning over me. And he said that, and he said, "If you do that, I'm going to have DHS called, and all the kids will take it away, and the probation officer will take Adam, and you don't want that, do you?" And I started shaking. I was like, "No." So he just, like the details are in the blog. He took me upstairs, and that was the first time he forced that. And then about once a week, he would do that to try and gain control over me. He would always say to try and get back control over me before, and use the threats of having the kids taken away and stalking. And he started talking about how he's going to start doing things like stalking, and he had to keep getting nastier every time that he did that. And this happened like 3 times before the news broke, and about the exorcism. And as the weeks progressed, he kept getting more aggressive, James did, and we, like I said, it was when the news finally broke, that we received a phone call from the media, News Channel 5. I was at work across the street, and Adam told me that the news was going to come by in like an hour to record someone, and therefore that explains the whole News 5 interview when James was standing here like he's the shit and in front of the goat head when we had that up. And that's when he was really bad. He started to work really thin, and that following week was happened to be the last rehearsal for the exorcism. And he came over, and we were setting things up, and James was moving everything around, trying to get things ready. And there was a phone call from the probation officer, because we had websites up, informing people about the event, and we had to move the computer upstairs, and I came downstairs, and Adam was right here, and James was over here, and Adam said that the probation officer told him that there was a correction that needed to be made on the website, and Adam needed to change it immediately. So Adam was like, "Yes, ma'am, I'll do that." And James walked over here. He happened to be having the affirmation in his hand, and he said, he looked at her and said, "That, I'm quoting him, it's on the paperwork, it's on what the probation officer has too. That bitch ain't stopping what I'm doing. Do I need to take care of her?" And like, he was signaling with his hands, "Do I need to take care of her?" While he looking at him and talking about getting rid of her and taking her out of the picture. He said she's not gonna stop him from doing the Civic Center. And was like, no, you're fine, everything's fine. They went to go pick up some church members, and I made the corrections on the website. And that was a Thursday, because in middle of September, because that Sunday that happened, I was at work. Adam got called in early, and he had the feeling to leave work and come home. And since he was working out more, that was a big drive, but he had to get a feeling to come home. So he came home, found the back door fucked up, and ajar, and things were chiseled. The lock was chiseled. The wood was, pieces of wood were missing around the lock, and it was. He came inside and he played around with the door, and everyone was locked from the inside. From the outside, you could still open it, and just no problem. And he got scared of that, so Adam came and picked me up, and we looked at it, and I remembered things, and there was very easily James could have, when he was using the saw, which was really loud, I went away for a few minutes, he could very easily chisel the lock. So I told Adam about that, and we went to go get a new lock and new wood, and tried calling James' cell phone to no avail. And since he's a public relations officer for that church, he was on his cell phone all the time, so we knew it was on. And then we decided to make sure that he was okay, because we actually cared about him and his safety. So we went over to his house because he wouldn't pick up. He was shaking because he was surprised to see us. But he's like, oh my God, and when he found out about the lock on the back door, then he went and took the lock and compared it and said, oh, someone's done the same thing to my front door too. It's terrorists that have done it. We're all being targeted by terrorists. We're going to be blown up at the Civic Center and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, he said some off the wall stuff. And so we're like, okay, and we went home, and the next day, on that Monday, when I was at work, Adam picked me up. He's like, there's been some really crazy stuff that's happened, and what if he can break in our house at any time? And so he picked me up. He had a bag of stuff already packed. We picked up all the kids from school, and we went to the probation officer and told her everything. She wanted us to write down statements. We wrote down statements there, and about everything that had been said about her and the other things. So she said to not let him within a vicinity of, which she said 200 feet of us out in public. And Adam's like, how am I going to do that? Why? And she just like scowled at him and just didn't say anything. She just sat there. He never had gotten an answer as to why. And he's like, okay, well, my family is obviously in harm. Can I take them down, to my parents? So we went down to Texas for a few days, where I, by the phone, agreed with Adam to, on Tuesday the 14th of September, dissolve the Church of the IV Majesties. Adam did that, went up to the state capitol, and he directed me to shut down the websites and how to close them down, and to put in on the website that about the Civic Center that the show was canceled and that the tickets and money will be returned to the people. We already sold like 30 tickets, and that's what I did on my end, and that's what I did on his end. And then on Wednesday at night, Adam came down, picked us up. We drove back up Thursday morning. It was about 11 o'clock. The kids are all in school and everything was okay. We were starting to unpack. And then there was a knock at the front door. Adam opened it, and it was News Channel 9, and they had been sent out to try and get Adam's side of the story of things. And since Adam declined an interview and they wouldn't leave, we called the cops. The cops took the news people and showed them the famous tattoos that are most recognizable. And therefore, that story from News Channel 9 happened. Apparently, James said that he closed the church down on that day, when in the news story you see the news reporter talk about how 2 days beforehand, someone had closed the church down. So it is on record that that's with News Channel 9 as well as everywhere else, that on Tuesday, September 14th, the Church of the IV Majesties was dissolved by our own hand and nothing else. Like I said, it was that Thursday that the news came out, and since then, Adam and I have worked things out between us. It was an ongoing process. Part of the healing process, we formed the Covenant of Seraphim in late December of 2010, and with enough support, that's why we formed the Church of Arden. That's basically that blog, over 4,000 words in a nutshell. And I really didn't want to make this blog or this video, but since this is a reoccurring question on Facebook and other media that keeps coming up about the church and how it was ended and why it was ended and things like that, I do feel a little more like a weight has been lifted, so I can say that I'm glad I did this, because I am the public face of the Church of Arden as much as everyone else is, and all questions should be answered between the blog and this video, and any more beliefs about me just being some hurt figure, it can go right out the window as well as anything else. You can't fake anything like that. It's too far gone, it's too messed up to be able to conjure anything like that. James is a monster. Everything that he says Adam is what every time that we've done a public event, he pulled out that same old card, saying these same old things. And I don't know if we'll be able to get rid of him ever, but from here on out, people should put 2 and 2 together and realize that James is a monster and no one should pay him any mind. I hope this helps, and thank you.